ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ BC ਦੀਆਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹਟੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਮੋਸਟ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਇਜ਼ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਆਸਕਡ ਇਜ਼ what next? What's going to happen next? Nobody knows. ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਸੀਟਾਂ BC NDP ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਸੀਟਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ BC ਕੰਸਰਵੇਟਿਵਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਸੀਟਾਂ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਮਿਲਣਗੀਆਂ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਇਹੋ ਹੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ। ਪੱਕਾ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਜੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਇਆ। 2 ਸੀਟਾਂ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਕੋਲੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਸੋ ਫਾਰ ਅੰਤਮ ਨਤੀਜੇ ਆਉਣੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਨੇ। 5-4 ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਹਾਲਾਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਨਸਰਟਨ ਬਣੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਅੰਦਰ ਖਾਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਅੰਦਰ ਖਾਤੇ ਇਹ ਮਤ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਧਿੱਜ ਜਾਈਏ ਕਿ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। ਹੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਪਰ ਖੜਕਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। Nobody is showing their cards, but there's a lot of stuff happening under the table. Under the table is a little bit negative. Under the, I would say, I mean, it's not that clear and it's not visible to us, but things are happening for sure. Sana Shamal ne Mr. Adam Olsen, 7 ਸਾਲ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ MLA ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਐਡਮ ਔਲਸਨ ਹੋਣੀ 49 ਵਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨੇ, 50 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਹੈ ਉਮਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ। ਔਰ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਵੇਰਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਸੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਬਣੇ ਸਨ ਜੌਨ ਹੋਰਗਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵੇਲੇ, at that particular time in 2017, almost a similar scenario happened at that time when Greens had 3 seats and 43 seats were with the Liberals and 41 seats with the NDPers. Eventually, you know what happened. With the help of Greens, NDP made the government, minority government by John Horgan. And what's going to happen next? Let's discuss this issue with Adam Olsen himself, who has ample experience in this field. 2017, actually, he was a part of those negotiations that happened at that time. He's part of the negotiation that's happening right now. Mr. Olsen, Sat Sri Akal ji, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the invitation.
Sir, what's going to happen next?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is a couple of very key ridings need to be, the votes need to be counted, and we need to have an outcome in, I think there's just a couple of ridings that could, determine what the final seat count is going to be, but there are, I think, a number of ridings that are very close and maybe even too close to call. So that's the process that's happening now with Elections BC, is they're finalizing the vote. And all of the speculation and all of the, as you've framed as we came in to this segment, all sorts of conversations happen, and about between people about what the potential outcome is going to be. But I think we're just a little bit before that time now that anything serious.
I fully agree with you, sir. I fully agree with you. But let's talk about the Green Party only. What are the expectations with the probable results that we are waiting? Green Party is focusing on these 2 seats, or there can be another one in the waiting?
No, the BC, it looks like the BC Green Caucus is going to have 2 members to it. We're very excited to have the first Green succession, really, in Saanich, North New Islands, the riding that I was in up until September, Rob Botterill, and then won that race, and Jeremy Valeriot won in West Vancouver, and that appears to be the limit of Green seats following this election.
How tough was it last time in 2017 when you were part of this negotiation and successfully, and the result came that Greens helped John Horgan, and John Horgan was successful in being the premier. How tough was that negotiation?
Well, I'm not going to get into how difficult or easy negotiations are. What I would say is that, in British Columbia, we don't have a long history, a long experience, at least in modern parliaments, with minority governments or with results that have been so close. For the vast majority of the history of our province, we've only had a 2-party system, and so, the votes split and the seats split, and there wasn't a situation historically where the returns were so close as we saw in 2017 and now again in 2024. And I think one of the key lessons that we learned from 2017 was that Courtney Comox at that time was very close, and there was still a lot to be determined before those votes were counted. And so I think one of the things that we learned is to not kind of get ahead of where we're at. I think the position that the BC Greens are in right now is trying to get both of our brand new MLAs around the legislature to see their new working spaces and getting them briefed up on how the BC Green Caucus has operated in the past. And I think the politics around it will be sorted out in the coming weeks.
You are one of the senior leaders in Green Party, and you are once an interim leader as well. And too bad that Sonia Furstenau couldn't win. But I remember she said something during the campaign or somewhere pretty close to the election, maybe election night. She said something about that, look at this, that we have an atmospheric river happening, we have a bad weather happening, and people are thinking about voting other parties, and specifically, I think she meant BC Conservatives. Why do you think that people didn't think about Greens? Because Greens were kind of focusing on 3, 4, 5 seats maybe. I did talk to Sonia Furstenau. Why only 2?
Well, I mean, I think that that's the challenge, the ultimate challenge of a political party. I think both the Conservatives and the BC NDP are asking, why not 49? Why not 50, right? So we're always working to try to have more seats, and we're going to go as a political party go through that process of figuring out why only 2. And I think that, once that process has happened, we should probably be talking about why we failed to elect people in other areas. And I think we just need to be open about that, as do the other parties.
Andrew Weaver, please go ahead.
I'll just say this, if I may. Like the BC Green Party plays an important role both in the environmental policy that's put forward in this province, but also we've been playing a much bigger role in raising issues around social policy as well, making sure that the people, the most vulnerable people in our society, are being looked after by government, and that the people are taken care of in the compassionate way that we want to look after people. And so, I think that what Sonia's comment was that, we're facing the impacts of climate change. And I think what we need to do a better job of as BC Greens is linking the cost of living increases that people are feeling to the increasing costs around wildfires, for example. Like the deficit is $1 billion bigger this year because of wildfires. And if we just continue to have extreme weather events, we lost, 2 or 3 people lost their lives in this most recent atmospheric river as flooding happened.
Do you think
the cost of life and the cost of and also the cost to our budget?
As we know that Mr. Andrew Weaver endorsed Mr. Rusted, and do you think that endorsement did cost Greens? Would have been 3 seats rather?
I think it's been a long time since Andrew Weaver's been a Green, and he's endorsed a whole other party in between endorsing the Conservatives and being the leader of the BC Greens. So, I think that history will show that Andrew has supported a multitude of political parties, and the most recent one is the BC Conservatives. I'm not sure to what extent his endorsement had an impact on the election, but I would sense that, I would say that I think the polls were pretty clear that this was going to be a close election for months now, and Andrew made his announcement just a few weeks ago. So, I think that we were on a track in BC to have government hear a message from the voters that they weren't happy with the way things are going, and now going forward, it's going to be up to the government to hear those messages and find a way to work with all of the members of the Legislative Assembly to make it happen, to make good policy happen, to support people, and so that they can see and feel that their government is doing good work.
Okay, as we know that we don't have the final figures yet, but we have 46, 45, and 2, and everybody's in a wait and watch scenario, and nobody's willing to show the cards what's happening. These negotiations are happening. We know that, but because you had a first-hand experience being a part of that agreement that happened between Greens and John Horgan government, was that a pleasant experience? Was it a good experience? Do you think there are chances that it can be repeated?
Look, I mean, I'll just say that I think that we need to, and I say we, I'm still talking like I'm an MLA. I think the MLAs, the 93 elected MLAs, need to understand that the people of British Columbia didn't elect a parliament for them to be going, back to the polls. That wasn't what the goal was. The goal was just to say, look, this is the outcome, and now make it work. And I think that one of the things that I am very, very proud of over my 7 years, and what I hope that is the legacy of every MLA, and that is that they can leave the legislature knowing that they have relationships on both sides of the house. I was saying earlier on today that I believe that we need to see the leaders of the political parties spending time with each other. We should see them talking to each other. We should see them smiling with each other. I think what we need to see from our leaders, what the public needs to see from the leaders, is that we can disagree with each other without hating each other, without having such a wide space between us. That's not what this country and what this province is about. And I think that it really does flows from David Eby and John Rustad and Sonia Furstenau to be spending time with each other so that the message is sent from the very highest office. We will get in and do the work for British Columbians. You will see us, standing together, working together, but you'll also see us fiercely debating and calling each other out and making sure that there's transparency and accountability, which is ultimately the role of the opposition. So, I guess what my hope is that members leave the place knowing that they have done their job, whatever it is, govern or, as the cabinet or as the backbenchers or as the members of the opposition. But yet in the end, it's an enjoyable experience being in the legislature. Mm-hmm. It's good work, and you feel good about the work that you do.
Adam, let me ask a question based on the assumption that it's already 28th of October today, and we know that the final figure didn't change. It's 46, 45, and 2 yet. Still, it's same figure. So keeping that thing in mind, I would assume as a journalist that because Mr. Rustad was shown the outdoor by Kevin Falcon because of his disagreements on the environment file, and because the BC Greens, they had a good cooperation history with each other last time, and I don't know about which leader is the best one in books of Greens. Is it Mr. Eby or Mr. Rustad? But I don't know. You'll be answering this question the way I want to ask you. So what do you think is a possibility? Can you give us a rough idea about the possibility of what's happening after we know all the figures?
No, because I think the challenge with the question is that it's very difficult. There are so many different potential outcomes that include Greens, that don't include Greens, so I think it's really, really critical. And one of the things you asked,
what do you mean by include or not include? What do you mean by this?
Well, what I'm saying is that there's 93 members of the Legislative Assembly. There's not just two, and so I think I want to go back to a question that you asked earlier, which was what did I learn from 2017? Okay. And what I learned from 2017 is that when there are people who have put their name on a ballot and the vote has not been determined, that we, I think, collectively owe it to those people whose lives are kind of hanging in the balance here, depending on, one person's going to win and everyone else is not going to, that we wait until those votes get counted. I think you've heard the same thing from the Premier. I think you've heard it from the leader of the Conservatives and heard it from Sonia. That really what we learned was that it's very easy to start speculating about what all the potential outcomes could be, but the reality is that until we understand what that landscape is, it's very, very challenging to have a conversation about it, specifically in public. I understand that, and it's not a very responsible thing for a senior leader like you. But last question before we conclude this conversation is there are two scenarios. If that kind of scene happens in India, then we have seen those negotiations, like a small party
wants to help the bigger party to make the government by staying in. That means being part of the government, having some sort of cabinet, ministerial position, or staying out and helping on some agenda and with some strings attached. Which one is the better one?
Well, I mean, you asked the question earlier, what scenario doesn't include the Greens? If the NDP wins one of those other seats, then they have basically a functional majority government. So this is the thing, is that it's very difficult to speculate on what any of those outcomes are until that's been solidified at the end of the vote count this weekend. And I'm sorry I can't give you more than that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, you're very right. I mean, maybe my questions are not very right. But what if? Well,
as a journalist, you have to ask.
No. That's a simple question. Very simple question, Adam. You're a gentleman. Let's say they got 3 seats. Now they have 49. Do you think they are, I don't want to use this word, they're stupid enough to make Greens angry on this? They should have some sort of association even after they got 49 seats.
My true hope is that at the end of all of this, and I'm at the end of this, that this legislature is a functioning legislature.
And there's not going to be any election soon.
Your question directly. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, there's not going to be any election soon. Let's agree on that.
Well, I think that, to me, elections happen in this province every 4 years, and when the elections are happening more frequently than every 4 years, it's an indication of dysfunction in our House. It's an indication that self-interest. It's an indication that folks are not looking out for the best interest or taking the will of the people at the election seriously. It really is up to leaders to be leaders, and that means leading through tough times. And so, that's my hope of this place, is that the 93 people that get elected really sees that their responsibility is to make our government function. That doesn't mean always agreeing with each other. It just means be functional.
Great. Mr. Adam Olsen, I have a compliment for you, sir. I have interviewed thousands of people in my last 18 years. You are a very honest, straightforward, and a real gentleman, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be on the list of people that you've interviewed, and I always enjoy our conversation, so thank you.
Thank you.